The Battle of Colachel was fought on 10 August 1741, OS. The 31st of July 1741, between the military, called the Nair Brigade, of the Indian Kingdom of Travancore and the Dutch East India Company. During the Travancore-Dutch War, the Dutch never recovered from the defeat and no longer posed a large colonial threat to India, assisting the British East India Company's eventual rise to dominance on the Indian subcontinent. Background: almost all the pepper that the Dutch imported into their country came from the Kingdom of Kulachal. When Martanda Varma became king of the small kingdom of Enad, he started a policy of assimilating neighboring kingdoms into the new kingdom of Travancore. In a series of battles, Martanda Varma annexed the kingdoms of Attingale and Quillan, on the pretext that the Raja of Kulachal was involved in certain conspiracies against him. Martanda Varma began a military campaign against Kulachal with the aim of incorporating the kingdom into Travancore. This endangered the Dutch East India Company's interests since they feared that the British, who had already signed a treaty with Martanda Varma, would gain the rights to the pepper trade in the Malabar area, thus ending the Dutch monopoly. With this threat to their commercial interests in view, the Dutch governor of Ceylon Gustaaf Willem van Imhoff wrote to Martanda Varma demanding that he should end the aggression against Kulachal. Martanda Varma wrote back to Van Imhoff, ordering him not to interfere in matters that did not concern him. In a subsequent meeting, Imhoff demanded that Martanda Varma restore the annexed kingdom of Kulachal to its former ruling princess, threatening to invade Travancore should he refuse. Martanda Varma countered that he would overcome any Dutch forces that were sent to his kingdom, going on to say that he was considering an invasion of Europe. Thus, the interview ended in tension and subsequently led to the Travancore-Dutch War. In 1741, the Dutch installed a princess of the Alayadathu Swarupam as the ruler of Kottarakara in defiance of the demands of Martanda Varma. The Travancore army inflicted a crushing defeat upon the combined Kottarakara Dutch armies and assimilated Kottarakara into Travancore, forcing the Dutch to retreat to Kochi. Following this, Martanda Varma captured all of the Dutch forts in the area. The battle. Following the losses that the Dutch and their allies had suffered in the war, a force of Dutch Marines from Ceylon under the leadership of a Flemish commander, Captain Eustachius de Lannoy, landed with artillery in Kulachal, then a small but important coastal town, to capture the capital of Travancore, Padmanabhapuram. They captured the territory up to Padmanabhapuram and laid siege to the Kalkulam fort. Martanda Varma promptly marched south with his army, and his timely arrival prevented the capture of Kalkulam fort by the Dutch, who, in turn, were forced to retreat to defensive positions in Kulachal. On 10 August 1741, both the armies met in battle, and Martanda Varma's army won a decisive victory over the Dutch, capturing a large number of Dutch soldiers. Apart from the rank and file, 24 officers including Eustachius de Lannoy and his second-in-command, Don Addy, were taken prisoner. Impact of the battle. In the words of the noted historian, Professor Sridhara Menon, a disaster of the first magnitude for the Dutch. The Battle of Colachel shattered for all time their dream of the conquest of Kerala. Despite participating in favor of the enemies of Travancore in the subsequent battles, right up to the Battle of Ambalapura, the Battle of Colachel was a death blow to the power of the Dutch East India Company in the Malabar coast. Subsequent peace treaties with Travancore saw the transfer of the remaining Dutch forts, which were incorporated into the Nadum-Kotter lines. In addition to the destruction of the Dutch East India Company's designs in the Malabar coast, the capture of the leaders of the expedition, Eustachius de Lannoy and his second-in-command Don Addy, were very beneficial to the Kingdom of Travancore. When de Lannoy and Don Addy were paroled, they took up service with Travancore and modernized the Travancore army into an effective fighting force. De Lannoy modernized the existing firearms and introduced better artillery and, more importantly, trained the Travancore army in the European style of military drill and military tactics. He carried out his orders with such sincerity and devotion that he rapidly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the Valier Capitan of the Travancore military, and was given the Udayagiri fort, locally known as the Dilanai Kota, near Padmanabhapuram, to reside. He was one of the commanders of the Travancore army during the decisive Battle of Ambalapura, where his erstwhile employers were fighting on behalf of Kochi and her allies. Following Travancore's victory over Kochi and her allies, the Dutch signed a peace treaty with Travancore and later sold their forts, which were incorporated by Delanoy, into the northern lines that guarded the northern border of Travancore. The Travancore military that Delanoy was instrumental in modernizing went on to conquer more than half of the modern state of Kerala, and the Nadum Kota forts Delanoy had designed held up the advance of Tipu Sultan's French-trained army during the Third Anglo-Mysore War in 1791 AD till the British East India Company joined the war in support of Travancore. A key element of the Raja's army during the Battle of Colachel was his personal guard, known as the Travancore Nair Brigade, or locally known as the Nair Patalam. This unit was later integrated into the Indian Army as the 9th Battalion Madras Regiment and the 16th Battalion Madras Regiment in 1954. The Nair Brigade, or Nair Patalam, was formed only after AD 1800. Originally, the majority of the war's Marthandavalma's war were fought by Nadar's armymen, and also as chieftains. Can refer Nagamaya. Travancore State Manual, also Nadunadhiraya Puratangal, by Professor Darwin. After the death of Marthandavarma and during the times of Dharmaraja, Nadars were expelled from bearing Palanquin, whose descendants still live in Kanyakumari district, also from Muttapuris of Sri Padmanabha Swami Temple. Since the class official history books circulated and propagated were written by from certain communities, the Nadar's sacrifice were forgotten and downplayed. Another direct outcome of the event at Kulachal was the takeover of the black pepper trade by the state of Travancore. This development was to have serious repercussions on the Dutch and the trading world of Kerala at large. In 1753 the Dutch signed the Treaty of Mavelikara with the Dutch, agreeing not to obstruct the Raja's expansion, and in turn, to sell to him arms and ammunition. This marked the beginning of the end of Dutch influence in India. The VOC continued to sell Indonesian spices and sugar in Kerala until 1795, at which time the English conquest of the Kingdom of Kochi ended their rule in India. Tributes. The Indian government has built a pillar of victory in Kulachal to commemorate the event. The Indian Post Department released a Rupee 5 stamp on April 1, 2004 to commemorate the centenary of the raising of the 9th Battalion of Madras Regiment. Additional reading. Nagamaya, Travancore State Manual. Iyer, Dr. S. Krishna. Travancore Dutch Relations, Nagacoil. CBH Publications, 1994, 164 pgs. ISBN 81-85381-42-9. Mena, Sheila. Military History of Travancore with special reference to the Nair Brigade. Etherage College for Women, 1995. Menon, Dr. Sridhara. A Survey of Kerala History. Viswanathan Printers and Publishers, 1996. http://www.hindu.com/u/2004/0724/stories/200401210210.htm http://www.hindu.com/2010/08/01/stories/2010080154870200.htm